I've spent the last 23 years working in security at Disney World, the so-called happiest place on Earth. For the first 2 decades, I worked in the parks, dealing with the usual chaos, shoplifters, drunk guests, and the occasional scuffle. It was exhausting, but it was manageable. A few years ago, though, the heat and constant walking started taking a toll on me, so I requested a transfer to one of the resorts. The resort gig was a lot easier on my body: air conditioning, less walking, and a more controlled environment. But the guest issues were trickier. Instead of dealing with rowdy park-goers, I was now handling domestic disputes. The stress of vacation, combined with the heat and expense, seemed to bring out the worst in some families. I'd get calls from neighboring rooms about couples screaming at each other, and I'd do my best to calm them down, suggesting they take a break or cool off. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a job I could handle. Until 3 days ago, I got a call from management about a room that hadn't been turned over. Housekeeping had gone in to clean it after the guests were supposed to check out, but all their belongings were still there: luggage, clothes, snacks, toys, everything. At first, they thought it was just a mix-up, but when they checked the room again the next day, everything was still there, untouched. By the 3rd day, they escalated it to me. I went to the room to investigate. Sure enough, it was full of personal items, like the family had just stepped out for a moment. I checked the reservation details. A family of 4, dad, mom, and 2 young kids, had checked in 5 days earlier. I tried calling the phone numbers on file, but no one answered. We were stumped. I made the call to have housekeeping clean the room and store the family's belongings until we could figure out what was going on. I started digging deeper into their reservation. They'd paid for parking, and their car was still in the lot, a gray minivan just as described in the reservation. That ruled out the possibility of them leaving abruptly or being in a car accident. Next, I checked their dining plan. They'd prepaid for meals, but had only used 3 credits: 2 at Epcot on their first full day, and 1 at Magic Kingdom the next day. The last meal they'd eaten was breakfast at Magic Kingdom, around 9 a.m. on their 2nd day. After that, nothing. Then I looked into their magic bands. These bands are like all-in-one devices for guests: room keys, park tickets, payment methods, and more. They also track FastPass usage, which lets guests skip lines for popular rides. I pulled up their FastPass history and saw that after breakfast at Magic Kingdom, they'd ridden a couple of rides, including It's a Small World, around 11 a.m. After that, there was no activity. No more rides, no meals, no purchases. It was like they'd vanished after getting on that ride. I called an old colleague who still worked at Magic Kingdom and asked him to pull the security footage from It's a Small World around the time the family had ridden it. When I got to the park, my friend looked visibly shaken. He showed me the footage. The cameras at the loading area showed the family scanning their magic bands and boarding the ride. But the footage from the unloading area showed only the other: guests from their boat exiting. The family was nowhere to be seen. We immediately shut down the ride. It was the middle of the day and the park was packed, but we didn't have a choice. We turned off the music, turned on the lights, and started searching. My friend and I walked the entire ride 3 times, checking every nook and cranny. We called in more help, and soon there were about 10 of us combing through the ride. We didn't find the family, but we did find 3 cell phones and a hat. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, nothing. It was like they'd just disappeared into thin air. I spent the next couple of days digging deeper into their reservation, trying to piece together what had happened. That's when I noticed they'd purchased Memory Maker. This service links all the photos taken by park photographers and ride cameras to the guest's account. I opened their photo album, and what I found made my blood run cold. There were 732 photos. The first few were normal, pictures of the family at Epcot in front, of the castle on a couple of rides. But after that, every single photo was from It's a Small World. The ride only takes one photo per cycle, so this meant the family had ridden it over 700 times. The first photo showed them smiling, surrounded by other guests. But in the next one, the boat was empty except for the family, and they looked confused. Over the next few photos, the dad started getting angry, yelling at someone or something. The mom was clutching the kids who were crying. By the 50th photo, they were trying to get out of the boat. In one photo, the dad was missing. In another, they were all gone, as if they'd jumped out. But in the very next photo, they were back in the boat, looking even more terrified. Around the 450th photo, only the mom and kids were visible. The dad was slumped in one of the seats, unmoving. By the 675th photo, only the mom and one child remained. The other child was gone, and the mom and remaining kid looked catatonic, staring straight ahead, pale and lifeless. And the dolls in the ride were moving. In some of the photos, they were in different positions, and in one, a doll was even in the boat with the family. I couldn't look anymore. I closed the album, but I noticed the file size had increased. It was like new photos were being added in real time. I felt sick to my stomach. I don't know what's happening, but I know it's not normal. The local police have just arrived, and I'll let them take over from here. But I had to get this out before Disney spins some cover-up story. This family didn't just vanish. They're still there, trapped in that ride. And I can't stay here after this. I'm done.